dream home at Victory Gardens, just 10 minutes drive from Kitengela town. Call us today on 0790 300 300.
Swaddling needs a blanket and helps your baby feel safe and secure as she adjusts to life outside the womb. Spread your baby's blanket out on a flat surface. Place your baby face up on the blanket. Their head should sit above the folded corner. Straighten your baby's arms, then take the sides of the blanket and wrap it over their arms and chest. Loosely twist the bottom of the blanket and tuck it underneath your baby. At this point, your baby is fully covered.
Kids, no rashes. Bye-bye rashes. Buy diapers. Choose Kids.
Je, maumivu ya kichwa na kukosesha amani? Kaluma Strong hutuliza maumivu ya kichwa, maumivu ya mwili na hata huondoa joto jingi mwilini. Kaluma Strong ina aspirin kama kiungo. Maumivu yakizidi, muone daktari.
Introducing Jomo Kenyatta International Airport's new parking payment options. Through the automated parking system, you can now pay for parking in 3 stress-free ways. Using M-Pesa through the USSD code *486*12#. Or using cash at the CAPS payment points located in the parkings, or using your preloaded CAPS A card. No payment will be done at the exits. Experience stress-free parking with Kenya Airports Authority. Kenya Airports Authority, setting our sights high.
Niaje wa Kenya. Hii ni public service announcement kuhusu coronavirus.
The Ministry of Health advises all returnees from abroad to self-quarantine for at least 14 days, whether they feel well or unwell.
Wash your hands regularly following the 8 steps of hand washing. Wet hands with warm water. Apply a small amount of soap. Rub palms together. Rub fingers and thumbs and the beads in between. Rub nails on palms. Rub the back of each hand. Rinse with clean running water and dry thoroughly with a clean dry towel.
Furthermore, it is advisable to cover your mouth and nose adequately when sneezing or coughing and immediately dispose of the tissue in a dustbin. Please do not use handkerchiefs if you can avoid it. If disposable tissue is unavailable, cough into your elbow. Try and avoid close contact with anyone showing signs of respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing.
Before you share any coronavirus information on social media, please verify it with Ministry of Health to avoid panic and alarm among your fellow Kenyans.
Are you looking for quality accredited academic programs to fulfill your career dreams? Chuka University offers courses at certificate, diploma, bachelor's, master's and PhD levels in the following faculties: Science, Engineering and Technology, Business Studies, Agriculture and Environmental Studies, Humanities and Social Sciences, Education and Resource Development, School of Nursing and Public Health. Intakes ongoing. Enroll now. Application forms available on www.chuka.ac.ke. Chuka University. Knowledge is wealth.
Protect yourself against coronavirus by using Amara antibacterial hand sanitizer that will effectively clean your hands and eliminate disease-causing virus while you're on the go. In line with government regulations against traders hiking the price of hand sanitizers, report any trader selling out of the below prices to 020-864-2330 or 020-864-2333.
Dad has not been feeling well for a long time. He has become so weak, we can't play together.
Why are you refusing to go to the hospital? I told you there is no way you'll know if it is TB or not if you do not go and get tested. If by any chance you find out that you have TB, you'll get the treatment for free from any hospital. All the tests are free. All the medications are free. Are you waiting to infect your family so that you can go to the hospital?
Don't wait till it's too late. TB is preventable, treatable and curable. Stay safe. Go digital. Reduce the use of cash and the risk of contamination. Enjoy the convenience and security of PesaPap mobile banking and Family Bank internet banking solutions anytime, anywhere. During this period, money transfer services, PesaLink and balance inquiry from your Family Bank account across all channels are free. For customers with existing facilities who may need support or extension of their repayments, talk to us. Terms and conditions apply. Prevent COVID-19. Family Bank, with you for life. Family Bank is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya.
This is NTV.
Now, 2 weeks into the coronavirus outbreak in the country, and the number of those infected now stands at double digits, and those being traced for having close contacts with them alarmingly tripled in the number. Now, the country is only beginning to feel the full impact of the virus that has hit the most affected countries hard, disrupting transport, trade, and even curtailing basic rights and freedoms. Closer home, traditions we have long held dear are slowly disappearing under increasingly but necessary duress. Our way of life and sources of livelihood can no longer hold, and as the economic downturn begins to manifest, on team coverage tonight, we count the cost of this global pandemic on various aspects of your life and the unexpected bonus that it comes with for Mother Nature. Good evening and welcome to NTV Tonight, this 25th day of March 2020, to the top stories.
Tonight, the total number of cases climbs to 28, but this dark cloud has a silver lining.
We have registered our first patient who has fully recovered.
Also tonight, times are bound to get harder for the hardheads.
Social distancing, whether we like it or not, is now our new normal.
Government imposes a nationwide 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew starting this Friday, plus
100% tax relief for persons earning a gross monthly income of up to Kenya shillings 24,000.
The president's pain reliever for an economy in agony will tell you what else is in his prescription. Also tonight,
no one is resistant to this infection.
Team coverage examines the toll of the disease on the economy, our culture, and our minds.
Our revenues were down almost around 60%.
Live from the Nation Center, this is NTV Tonight with Kenn Mijungu.
Our sign language interpreter tonight is David Agondoa. Let's bring in our team that will help us count the cost of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. Here at the Nation Center are our business editor Julian Samboko, Leila Mohammed, and Silas Apollo. Joining us from home is Zainab Wandati, the science and technology editor. Bridget Ngana joins us from Nakuru, while Melita Oletenges is in the county of Nyeri. Team coverage begins in a bit, but first to our top stories tonight. And we begin the broadcast tonight on the brighter side of the dark coronavirus cloud. Now, Kenya has reported the fast recovery from the COVID-19 despite the number of new cases having risen by another 3. President Kenyatta doubling down on the calls to Kenyans to abide by the Ministry of Health guidelines and the measures to prevent a further spread of the disease. Eunice Omolo begins our coverage tonight.
The head of state is often seen as the bearer of bad news during such desperate times.
Citizens.
But today, President Uhuru Kenyatta had a message of hope.
We have registered our first patient who has fully recovered from this virus. This, fellow Kenyans, is a clear indication that we can and indeed will defeat this virus.
The good news was preceded by the announcement of 3 new cases of COVID-19 in the country, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 28. The president also emphasized the need to limit the spread of the virus through basic changes in individual behavior and hygiene, taking a dig at politicians and influential people in the society for failing to adhere to set guidelines to keep the virus at bay.
We have recently experienced cases within our country where transmission was from our political and our religious leaders who unfortunately failed to heed the guidance of the Ministry of Health on self-quarantine and social distancing.
Meanwhile, the French national who tested positive for COVID-19 has been moved from Ukunda to Nairobi for treatment. Kenya becomes the latest country in East Africa after Tanzania to report a recovered case. Tanzania, which has 12 confirmed cases, recorded 1 recovery a few days back. In general, Africa has recorded 185 recoveries from 15 countries. A total of 44 out of 54 African countries have reported a total of 2,495 cases and 65 deaths. The president's confirmation and announcement that has brought a ray of light in the country during these dark times comes a day after the Health CS Mutahi stated that all confirmed cases are doing well and are stable except for 2 elderly gentlemen. All the confirmed cases range between 20 and 67 years and are recuperating in various facilities across the country. Eunice Omolo, NTV, Nairobi.
Well, starting this Friday, you will be forced to operate between 5 a.m. and 7 p.m. as the president announced an indefinite and nationwide curfew to check the spread of the coronavirus. Now, the president warned of even more stringent measures if you do not comply. NTV's Kenn reports on the additional measures to keep the virus at bay and to relieve the pain it has brought upon the country.
Friday evenings have for the longest time been associated with merrymaking for some, and for others, an intimate time for family outside the house as they try to enjoy some of what they have already made within the week. But that will soon change. President Uhuru Kenyatta has announced an indefinite curfew that will soon change the way people have been behaving in an effort to combat the fast-raging coronavirus.
That effective Friday, 27th March 2020, there will be a daily curfew from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. And this shall be in effect in the territory of the Republic of Kenya.
According to President Kenyatta, the measures have been necessitated by the fact that Kenyans have largely ignored calls to stay at home, warning that a complete lockdown was not off the table.
If these measures are deemed to be inadequate, we shall, without hesitation, take even further and more drastic measures to ensure that the cardinal duty of the government and the state, which is the protection of life and property, is assured.
Those in the critical and essential services and to be allowed to operate past 7 o'clock are medical professionals and health workers, national security officers, public health and sanitation officers in the county governments, licensed pharmacies and drug stores, licensed broadcasters and media houses, Kenya Power and Lighting Company, food dealers, distributors, wholesalers and transporters of farm produce, licensed supermarkets, mini markets and hypermarkets, licensed distributors and retailers of petroleum and oil products and lubricants, licensed telecommunication operators and service providers, licensed banks, financial institutions and payment financial services, fire brigade and other emergency response services, and licensed security firms.
I want to reiterate that we have taken these basic measures to protect life, to protect the health of our citizens.
Consequently, the President has called on those in public service to take a voluntary pay cut in efforts to complement government steps to combat the virus, announcing that he and his deputy would lead from the front.
President and Deputy President, 80%. Cabinet Secretaries, 30%. Chief Administrative Secretaries, 30%. Principal Secretaries, a reduction of 20%. I call on the other arms of government and tiers of government to join us in this national endeavor by making similar voluntary reductions.
With the knowledge of the adverse effects the virus has on the elderly, the government has announced a reprieve to safeguard those nearing retirement.
That all states and public officers with pre-existing medical conditions and or aged 50 years of age and above, serving in job group S and below, or their equivalents, to take leave or forthwith work from home.
President Kenyatta has again directed Cabinet to meet twice weekly under the chairmanship of Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i, with the main aim of seeking fresh ways to combat the virus. Kennedy Muredhi, NTV.
And you ask, what is the government doing? Well, the government is deploying every tool at its disposal in an effort to arrest the deterioration of the coronavirus health emergency into an economic emergency. Now, this afternoon, President Kenyatta spelled out a raft of tax proposals designed to counter the slowdown in the business environment already being experienced, as Victor Kiprop now explains.
All Kenyans earning 24,000 shillings and below will be granted a 100% tax relief if the proposals tabled by President Uhuru Kenyatta are given a green light by Parliament. Effectively, this means that all persons earning 24,000 shillings or less will not be taxed as the government moves to cushion consumers from the high cost of living in the face of deteriorating business environment in light of the coronavirus. Further to this, the president has also directed a reduction in pay-as-you-earn from the present 30% to 25%, a measure which is hoped will help increase the disposable income held by workers so as to boost consumption. To cushion micro, small and medium-sized businesses, the president has also proposed a reduction in turnover tax from the present 3% to 1% as a means to help the SME segment of the economy tied through the crisis presented by the outbreak of coronavirus. Listing of all loan defaulters on the credit reference bureaus will also be suspended, a move which is expected to help a majority of Kenyans access loans at a time when banks have largely been shy from lending. President Kenyatta has also called for the prompt settlement of up to 13 billion shillings in eligible pending bills held by ministries, departments and agencies, a move which is expected to help improve the cash flow position of many businesses. Kenya Revenue Authority will also be required to expedite the settlement of all pending value-added tax refunds in a bid to help businesses access cash that has been held at KRA for many years without being settled. Finally and critically, if the president's proposal sail through Parliament, the rate of value-added tax will be reduced from 16% to 14%. This is expected to lower the cost of goods and services and therefore help lower the cost of living in these critical and extraordinary times. Victor Kiprop, NTV.
Away from that now to our team coverage tonight. And let's begin with Julian Samboko. Now, the spread of the coronavirus, a major public health emergency, but with business grinding to a halt and thousands staring at job losses, it is increasingly morphing into an economic emergency. Isn't it, Julian?
Absolutely, that's right, Ken. Already the government has stepped up measures to arrest the economy's decline, with the central bank reaching out to the IMF and the World Bank for as much as, get this, 100 billion shillings emergency support. Let's now take stock of how businesses are counting the cost. Ideally, this restaurant and bar would be busy with heavy foot traffic on a lunchtime such as this. Now, unoccupied seats, tables are tucked in one corner,
and staff are sitting pretty much idle. Consumers are keeping away from the virus and by extension, such places. We meet the team leader, Robert Kingori, who puts into perspective the scale of impact that this is having on his business.
From the onset of the first case being reported, I believe that was Friday the 13th, immediately we started seeing a slowdown in business. From the 13th to the 20th, I mean, our revenues were down almost around 60%. So, and that is just people staying away from social areas.
Like many other business persons, Kingori is now hanging on to alternative means of satisfying his customers' needs, even as his outlet remains a ghost town from dusk to dawn, and yet, despite all this, he still has his daily costs to meet.
We have our delivery partners. Between that, we believe that we'll be able to at least push on some kind of business to our guests. I do not believe that we have that many deliveries that can sustain us.
Over the last 1 week, the government has undertaken a raft of measures aimed at cushioning businesses from the adverse effects of the coronavirus, notably engaging commercial banks to extend more favorable loan repayment terms to borrowers. Kingori, however, feels there's a lot more that can be done to cushion businesses.
They can do something with the taxes. We are heavily taxed. There's VAT, there is catering levy, and at 2%. There's our corporation tax, those who are due some VAT refunds. This is the time that we need that cash back.
I think we don't have the fiscal space. Looking at the current performance in the fiscal year, already we have a financing gap of close to 90 billion. So already we are underperforming in most of those measures. So from that fiscal point, I don't think we have the kind of policy levers that you see even in the other developed nations that they have.
The effects of the virus on the economy extend beyond the small and medium-sized businesses. Large corporations such as Kenya Airways are rationalizing expenditure with staff taking pay cuts. The country's flour companies are downsizing as export markets are rendered unreachable owing to disrupted supply chains.
They can be what we at Titan like to call a business stabilization fund. Unfortunately, the transmission of it is difficult because a lot of those who are suffering, almost 80% of Kenyans who will suffer with a shutdown in the economy are in the informal sector. How do you reach them?
Reacting to the coronavirus, the Central Bank of Kenya has slashed its growth projection for the Kenyan economy from 6.2% to just 3.6% in 2020. It goes to show just how much of a hit the country is taking from the effects of the spread of the virus. Revenues are falling, jobs are being lost, and households are being left desperate and uncertain about their future.
Now, clearly, the government this afternoon has proposed some tax measures touching on the fiscal policy just being mentioned. But the cost of the pandemic are not just confined to shillings and cents of the economy. The basic freedoms and rights enjoyed by Kenyans on a daily basis are also on the line. Now, Silas, what are we looking at as the country tackles this pandemic?
Yes, Julian, tackling the spread of the virus may call on the government to take unprecedented and maybe unpopular but necessary measures that may curtail freedoms and rights enjoyed by the masses. Today, the president set in motion the process that could end up in a total lockdown. I take a look at what a lockdown may look like and its possible impact on the Kenyan way of life.
And Kenyans are exhibiting a very indisciplined behavior, and this is going to cost us. This is one time when you idea, the government won't idea, because the government cannot help each and every home and every child.
This was Tuesday this week, when a furious Mutahi Kagwe laid bare his frustrations with the casualness with which Kenyans were heeding the advice on the coronavirus, as a majority of the populace either refused to observe social distancing or stay at home to avoid spreading the virus. Many say their options are limited, either stay at home to avoid spreading the virus and sleep hungry, or disobey the government and put food on the table.
Kama wataavoid, watatuambia tufuge, wakuwe responsible, watuletee unga, sisi mboga tutajitafutia.
Mwisho wa hii mwezi wanatuishisha bado nini kulipia hizi vibada, si ndio? Tunatoa wapi pesa shwari? Sasa wametuambia wametuamirisha tufunge ya lazima.
Wanasahau kuwa sisi watu wengi Nairobi hapa ni watu ambao wanategemea mkono yao. Unapokuja ndio unapata riski yako, usipoamuka una riski.
At least 8 countries in Africa have either declared a total lockdown or a partial one, with some like Sierra Leone declaring a 12-month state of emergency. The curfew announced by the president now seen as a precursor to a lockdown, even by the president's own admission.
If these measures are deemed to be inadequate, we shall, without hesitation, take even further and more drastic measures.
But will that lockdown be a necessity in Kenya?
A lockdown would be fairly extreme, but it would have to be crafted in a way that, first of all, provides the justification for why you're locking down the country.
If we continue to behave normally, this disease will treat us abnormally.
The government has already issued restrictions on movements, banning social gatherings like churches, mosques and pubs. Restaurants have also been advised to operate on a takeaway basis, with matatus being restricted on the number of passengers they can carry.
Watu 15, alafu napepa hiyo ngapi? Napepa 1500. Kifika jioni gari nataka 8000. Itakuwa tumeumia sana. Inafaa tuangalie. Kama ni kufunga gasi, tufunge zote, watupe chakula na turudi kwa nyumba tukule.
For now, the rights and freedoms of assembly remain, even in the face of the pandemic. And now the icing is on the cake, a 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew effective from Friday, the 27th.
And now, while the government mulls over the next step after the curfew, the citizens will be worrying about the possible emotional toll that the disease is taking on the collective national psyche. Leila, sections of the country's population are already familiar with this, aren't they?
Indeed, Silas, the COVID-19 affected many Kenyans, especially 90 Kenyans living inside Wuhan of Hubei province in China since 2019, that is December, and that also affected their families here in the country, and this took an emotional roller coaster toll on them and their families, giving them so many anxieties for so many months. Well, tonight there are 28 cases that have been confirmed in the country, and with this rising cases, there could be so many more Kenyans who are finding themselves in similar circumstances of fighting such anxieties. Here's my report.
Even before Kenya caught the COVID-19 cold, the toll of that pandemic was evident back here. Parents of children stuck in the then lockdown of Wuhan helplessly pleading with the government to bring back their loved ones. Assurances from the government doing little to lessen their anxiety and distress.
We want the government of Kenya to do the right thing.
Our children are asking us, where is mom? When is she coming? We are told there's a virus in China.
But as time moves, so did the virus that has now landed into the country.
While we reached out to them to understand how this has been affecting them emotionally, for the last few months they have declined that offer, only saying that they hope that they cannot bring back their children at this moment, considering that COVID-19 is now affecting Kenya, but they just wish that their children are safe and sound.
In the last 24 hours,
the anxiety in the face of the virus now spreading beyond the parents and students of Wuhan. The entire nation is in the grip of the unknown disease and what impact it will be on their families and their way of life. The threat of isolation of loved ones, should they contract the virus perhaps, the more worrying aspect of the management of the virus. Psychologists say that the emotional toll it takes to go through the disease is a lonely affair and one that affects families that don't know whether they will see their kin again. But ultimately, the undesired and dreaded end of the disease could also be weighing heavily on the minds of Kenyans as the severity of the disease sinks in. And they have good reason to be. Outcomes in other countries dealing with this pandemic paint a grim picture. In Italy, the hardest hit outside of China, tens of pages in the local dailies of Bergamo are full of obituaries, many of the about 1,000 people who have died in this northern part of Italy died a lonely death, and since the country has banned funeral gatherings, even in death, their send-off might not have a bigger family around. Italian media reports that hospitals have adopted more stringent rules regarding the handling of the dead, who need to be placed in a coffin straight away without being clothed due to the risk of infection posed by their bodies. While the situation in Kenya has not reached the level being experienced in Italy, some counties have closed down their mortuaries while asking their families to bury their dead as soon as possible.
Well, the emotional toll of this pandemic has been accompanied by a shift in traditional practices by various communities across this country. Bridget Singana, you witnessed some of these subtle changes. Just give us a sneak preview of how Kenyans are adopting to these new changes.
Yes, Leila, you have said it. And Africans, Kenyans included, are known to go big in celebrating life and all its milestones. We're talking about birth, initiation or transition into adulthood, marriage, and eventually death. People, this virus actually is disrupting these social norms, and people are being forced to adhere to the government directive as far as this COVID-19 virus is concerned. We did share some time with a family that is going through a difficult time in this moment, and here is their story. Bishop Charles Irungu helped to load his mother's remains into a hearse at this funeral home in Nakuru. She died last Tuesday, and while he expected the whole clan to celebrate the life of his elderly mother, the coming of COVID-19 has denied him that company as he bids his mom goodbye.
It's so painful seeing yourself resting your mother with only 15 people and all the people who have supported you. This morning I told my children, we're in the United States, we're going to do live streaming so that because they don't believe that their grandmother is going to be buried by only 15 people.
Irungu's family heeding the government's directive limiting the number of people attending burials to just 15. This is one of the measures the government is implementing as it rushes to flatten the tide of corona infections across the country. But it also goes against the grain of African beliefs and traditions about life, death, and the afterlife.
Kiafrika, mtu akipelekwa kwa njia hiyo, Waafrika huona kama hajaziko, ni kama wakupatiana heshima zile zitafuata. Because those mortuary services are not available. When somebody passes on, either especially at home, the following day they should be buried. Because the people give burial permits are actually our own chiefs and assistant chiefs. They'll give those burial permits and they're going to ensure that these guidelines are adhered to.
For sociologists, while the virus might be disruptive for cultures across the world, pandemics have been crucial in dictating the dynamics of human practices and beliefs going forward.
Cultures change through three main mechanisms: contact, technology, and epidemics. Now, epidemics may lead to society's revaluation of certain cultural practices and abandon those practices that they think are enhancing the spread of the epidemics, and embrace those ones that they think will limit the spread of the epidemics.
Irungu's toughest battle is keeping away even his close neighbors from attending his mother's funeral.
We have tried to seal all the fence with the timber and everything that people may not jump because people wanted to come. But I don't want to be in trouble because I've been told strictly 15 people. It's so painful.
For the duration of the pandemic, this is the new norm for funerals and burials. Whether the shift will stick around post-coronavirus, only time will tell. Well, burials and other social gatherings are one of the things that have been adversely affected by the government protocol. People are heeding to this directive in order to protect themselves from the COVID-19 disease. While, Melita, this virus is also changing the Kenyans' traditional practices and the way they're doing things in general. Tell us how this is manifesting there in Nyeri.
Indeed, Bridget, the fight against the spread of the virus has reawakened the need to exercise the highest standards of personal hygiene, with the World Health Organization recommending hand washing with soap as the first line of defense. This is causing a shift as the families and communities strive to keep the virus at bay.
Practices such as these are fast becoming the norm. Before any business is conducted, the business of maintaining proper personal hygiene has to be dispensed with first. At least here at the Nyeri Open Air Market, ingenuity comes into play as all gears are engaged to stem the spread of coronavirus.
Watu wametia maanani usafi na ninaona ni jambo la maana juu ukitembea unakuta maji unaoga.
Mananasi inaoshwa kama avocado, watu wanaanza kuosha. Mwenye customer akichukua pesa yake unaoga mkono.
The transport sector is equally enforcing this new culture of hand washing and sanitizing. Matatu operators and passengers are required to wash their hands regularly, painting a different picture of the hygiene standards Kenyans are accustomed to at the bus stations.
Tunafaa pia kuendelea hivyo kwa sababu pia itafanya magonjwa zingine kama ya kuhara na hizo zingine zisienee.
At the household level, the same scenarios are playing out. Joseph Mwangi and his family are not taking any chances. Regular washing of not just hands but all edibles has now become a strict new rule with no exception to visitors.
Siku hizi hata ukifungua gate unakuja haraka kwanza unaoga. Maana hujui ni nani ameguza hiyo gate.
Jumi nakumbuka kaa kitambo. Sikuwa naosha mikono ama kukumbuka kuambia watu wash your hands before you touch any food.
Doctors say these simple measures are useful not just in these COVID-19 days, but beyond as well.
Most of the diseases we have are transmitted through the same way, by poor hygiene, poor sanitation, and therefore by embracing these things, we will also fight other things other than just the coronavirus.
Cleanliness and public hygiene is not something that Kenyans take too seriously. But in the wake of coronavirus spread, it has become more of a social responsibility. A simple task like washing hands has brought the country's hygiene standards up to scratch.
My colleague Zainab Wandati, who has been working from home, now tells us about the other positive outcome of a world more in touch with better practices. Zainab.
Well, Tenges, working from home is not as easy as it looks. My brother has had to learn a bit of camera work in order to make this possible. But as this pandemic forces people to stay home, it is also forcing economies to either slow down or shut down completely. And this in turn means that there's less pollution on the road, at least for the countries that are already in lockdown. And there's less pollution both on land and in water. Take a look.
Is there such a thing as the perfect solution to stopping global warming? Well, that is the question that climate activists seek answers to constantly, as scientists paint a grim picture of the future of the Earth under a changing climate. But now the coronavirus pandemic seems to be presenting one. Stay home.
If you look at Chinese, the China itself, you will notice that it emits about 30%. Kenya only emits about 0.1%. And in a situation where there's lockdown, it means between February, March, we are like 30% recovered. 30%. That's a huge impact.
In the last week, scientists have published satellite data indicating that the quality of air in pandemic-hit countries has improved as industries and transport ground to a halt. In China, for instance, carbon dioxide levels have dropped by 25%, while in northern Italy, nitrogen dioxide levels have been dropping by at least 10% per week over a period of 5 weeks. In Venice, the waters have cleared and the dolphins are back.
This is a wake-up call. Do we need all these travels?
Do we need all these ships? Do we need all these planes?
But as the economic slowdown as a result of the coronavirus pandemic leads to improvements in air quality in many parts of the World Meteorological Organization is warning that it is still too early to celebrate because things will most likely change and maybe even get worse as soon as these economies reopen.
This should not be sacrificed at the altar of rebuilding the economy. And as you rebuild the economy, we have now an opportunity to now rebuild it on a cleaner slate. That is turning green.
The WMO says that the positive environmental impacts are isolated cases that are yet to have any impact on the global situation. This means that the world should not be looking at this pandemic as a substitute for climate action. The Kenya Climate Change Working Group says that even though Kenya's contribution to climate change is insignificant, it can draw lessons from this crisis, especially in the transport sector.
The County of Nairobi was planning to put a car-free day. I think this is the time they might start testing that. Number two is also look at issues of non-motorized transport.
While in Kenya, 52% of the air pollution comes from transport. The transport sector accounts for nearly 30% of carbon emissions globally.
Well, unprecedented times call for unprecedented measures, at least from the government and policy levels. But what do you think needs to be done in order to get out of this with as little impact as possible? Hear your views.
Wakati serikali inasema watu wakae kwa manyumba zao, ni kama people don't take it serious and they imagine that hata wakitembea labda hawata spread the virus. But this is a new thing, haina tiba, and the only thing people can do is to stay at their homes.
Hii ni kitu ambayo itakuja na itapass. But wewe sijui kama utaendelea kuishi. Wale watabaki, lakini ile kitu nakwambia, jichunge wewe mwenyewe. Take care of yourself as Kenyan citizen.
Fuata maagizo vizuri na tuombe Mungu atuondolee hii janga la hii ugonjwa. Tutafanya nini? Itaisha haraka.
I would request the government to bring more kits. Let's get tested.
We adhere to the rules and the regulation which has been directed by the government, that we wash our hands and also we stay at home. So without that, this corona thing will kill us.
Most of us here with the small businesses, we earn from hand to mouth. Now we are afraid. Now we don't know if it comes to the issue of complete lockdown, what is the government going to do against that? That is my only worry.
There is a science in handling this pandemic, and Ken, you've been looking at the global trends and what people are doing out there to handle it. Tell us about that.
Yes, indeed, Zainab, and you must have heard scientists talk about flattening the curve. What you should also know is that the flattening of the curve is as much science as it is common sense. Now, the graphic is simply two curves and a straight line. Now, the curves represent the number of the new diseases or the new cases over time under two scenarios. The first one, where there is no response and collective action and the potential to exceed the health system's capacity to provide care to all who need it. And this is purely scientific. It's also important to remember, Zainab, that COVID-19 epidemic control measures may only delay cases, not necessarily prevent them. However, flattening the curve helps limit the surge and gives health institutions time to prepare and manage the breakout and reported cases. And flattening the curve is simply the difference between finding yourself at the ICU and ventilation or being forced back home or to a makeshift hospital or healthcare center, as we have seen. So how does this happen? Now, the first action is to reduce infections and the spread. Now, this will effectively reduce the healthcare burden. Now, the more the sick, the more the likelihood that they cannot be attended to, not just promptly, but also entirely. This is how the curve looks, and it will look without the first intervention. Now, the high peak on that curve depicts the coronavirus running wild through the population, having infected people as those infected unknowingly pass it on to strangers, their co-workers, friends, and even loved ones at home. It also shows the cases mounting as more and more people get the uneasy feeling that a sickness is coming their way and treatment may not be available. When the virus hits the high peak, still on that curve, selfishness sets in. Now, this is where you find or you witness panic buying, disregard to neighbors, and the fear of foreigners, as was witnessed earlier in Feb. Now, people begin fighting for pressures and dwindling supplies at the market, and the begging for life-saving services at the hospitals also begin. At this point, it's the situation that gets chaotic and obviously out of control. So the question is, how do we do this, or what to do in this situation? Drastic measures, same as what the government has been saying and pushing for. These are avoid interactions, close the schools, churches, avoid social gatherings in churches, weddings, funerals like we have seen, only 15, self-isolate back home, minimize use of public transport, close the points of entries, borders, and when everything fails, then what President Kenyatta did today, close down, although partially, and of course institute a lockdown. Now this will no doubt affect the economy, as Julian's reported earlier, but if this is successful, then the virus is contained within a small population that can be managed. The infections are controlled, there are no new cases reported, and at this point, the curve begins to come down. Eventually, it flattens, and again, we'll show you that curve, balancing out. This has only been achieved in one place, that's China so far. Most countries with new infections are now headed to the peak before they can begin the climb down to safety. And for the world to manage, sectors affected globally such as sports, conferencing, production, travel, tourism will be put on hold. Well, that's it for team coverage tonight. Stick around for more of our stories of the day.
Oya ni aje, mino Jonte Fresh. Mi ndio nimetambulika hii Gikomba yote sekta ya manguo. Jumio transform nguo ordinary za mtush zenye ziuka mna hii harufu ya bail into the freshest igi kosi yote. Siri ni hii Ariel mpya ya pink. Na kusho mtush zinang'ara kung'ara kushinda kamera. So clean, so fresh. Ma customer unaisana na hii story. Ninatumia Ariel touch of down mpya tu.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready, dog. Get ready. Ready, set, jump to the rhythm as hard as you can go. Steady, to the letter right, turn it up, we giving the show.
Hey.
Hey.
What'd I miss?
Female genital mutilation is one of the worst forms of gender-based violence that is meted on girls and women worldwide. According to UNICEF, more than 200 million girls and women alive today have been cut worldwide, and 9.3 million have undergone the cut in Kenya. Another 3 million girls are at risk of undergoing the cut every year. Therefore, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta has committed to end FGM in Kenya by the year 2022. Ending FGM is the responsibility of every Kenyan. Kukomesha ukeketaji ni jukumu langu, jukumu lako na jukumu letu. Pamoja tukomeshe ukeketaji kufikia mwaka wa 2022. This message is brought to you by the Anti-FGM Board in collaboration with UNICEF Kenya.
Do your gums hurt? Yeah. Does your toothpaste contain sage, eucalyptus, myrrh, chamomile? All that in one toothpaste? Yes, try Colgate Herbal. Colgate Herbal contains nature's best herbs and Colgate's fluoride technology to give you strong teeth and healthy gums. Ah, Colgate Herbal. Let's go. Colgate Herbal for strong teeth and healthy gums naturally.
Right, the news continues right here on NTV tonight, and I've just seen a very, very funny tweet that or rather a tweet that makes a lot of sense that I have to read before I do this. Now, this is from Linda Mbaisi. She says, the irony of the USA segment on what we just covered, team coverage, is that the guys we interviewed about the stay-at-home directive are themselves on the street, and yet they are castigating those defying the directive. They should have given their views while seated at home. And of course, we'd like to correct a story that we did earlier, and it's not because of our fault, but the fault from the presidency, the earlier statement from the president, that actually officially admitting they made a mistake, and the age to stay at home are 58 and above, and not 50 as stated in the president's statement. And because we needed to have clarified that earlier on, we're doing it right now. Now let's talk about COVID still. Since the first case of the COVID-19 was reported, the health message has been clear. The older you are, the more at risk you are. But the World Health Organization has warned young people not to consider themselves invincible. In fact, an 18-year-old from England is the youngest to have died of the virus so far. But the growing complacency among the young people on the threat of the virus caused might be the real danger, as NTV's Zainab Ismail now reports.
Dear young Kenyan, I hope this finds you in perfect health. And I'm sure you're trying to adjust your life to the changes that have been brought about by the coronavirus pandemic. And I know it can be excruciatingly hard at times to stay in the house for hours on end while you just want to go out, probably hang out with your friends or go to your favorite sport. But guess what?
You're not invincible. This virus could put you in hospital for weeks or even kill you. Even if you don't get sick, the choices you make about where you go could be the difference between life and death for someone else.
This was the World Health Organization chief's rallying call to the young in the face of concerns they were ignoring health warnings. Just a few days ago, a couple of DJs planned a party scheduled for the 22nd of March, dubbed the Lockdown Party, a day before the government's directive imposing curfews on clubs and bars was effected. Oblivious of the danger they would have subjected those who would have attended, given the rising numbers of cases witnessed in the country.
Ideally, I think that a lot of people really misunderstood the whole plan, because if you look at it carefully over the weekend, we've been given there's a government directive that we had till Monday, to lock down. At the end of the day, what people forget is that we had plans initially. We've been running events even on Friday, on Saturday. So for me, it was a very innocent idea, by the way, just having the last party, myself and John Falme. So I actually have to apologize, in fact, to the whole nation, because you see, I think I've been blessed enough to be at a position where I can influence. And for me, it wasn't a good move really doing that event on that day.
Studies have shown that although fatalities were highest in people over 85 years old, people of all ages can be infected by the virus.
Hii ugonjwa inaitwa corona, mimi najua iko, na sana hii corona inapata wazee. Hiyo ndio kitu yenye najua, na vijana na watoto ni kama wako at risk.
Even so, low risk does not mean no risk. And young people around the world have been sharing the experiences of grappling with the virus online as a warning to others. As a young person, you need to think about the choices you make and how that can spiral out of control, even unintentionally, such as attending a small party, hanging out at the bar, or even going to the beach. So how you adapt to life during this time will be critical to ensure we curb the spread of the virus. Zainab Ismail, NTV.
Right, young people, now you know. In fact, to add on to that is that an 8-month-old baby in Uganda is perhaps the youngest in the region to test positive for the coronavirus. And we now know that the coronavirus is highly contagious, causes respiratory illnesses, and can lead to acute respiratory distress in severe cases. So how exactly does COVID-19 attack the body? Why is it mild for some and fatal for others? Gladys Gashanja sought the answers from a specialist.
This club-shaped virus, which under a microscope resembles a solar corona, has wreaked havoc across the world since December of 2019, earning it the name SARS-CoV-2, which causes the COVID-19 disease. Its severity varies from mild or no symptoms to severe or sometimes fatal illness, the outcome highly based on one's immune system.
People over the age of 65, we know, succumb to the disease or get a severe form of the illness of COVID-19. Also patients who have comorbidities, so other conditions such as diabetes, renal disease, cancer.
So far, 440,398 people across the globe have been infected with the virus, which is highly infectious, causes respiratory illness, and in severe cases greatly compromises the lungs. However, the effects of the disease seem to vary.
People with asymptomatic disease that don't require hospital admission, do not require ICU admission and ventilation, they recover. But it's the patients who have severe form of disease that requires them to go to critical care, to be put on ventilators and have a prolonged course of the illness. They're the ones more likely to have damage to their lungs.
The novel coronavirus is also known to affect other body organs beyond the lungs, including renal failure.
People with existing conditions, so we know diabetics, hypertensives, may already have pre-existing kidney damage. So another hit will make them more prone to kidney failure and need dialysis.
112,036 people have totally recovered from COVID-19 thus far. This means the virus did not leave any long-term damage to the body.
Some viruses have a cure and some don't. So for example, HIV does not have a cure. We can limit its progression by putting you on ARVs. The data we have from China and other countries, it does show that patients who get cured get rid of the virus.
The variability of the effects of COVID-19 are glaring, and any case could potentially be fatal.
Please, please, please social isolate. And the main reason for doing that is to reduce the peak. If we get thousands of people infected, our healthcare services are going to be overwhelmed. So even the 30-year-old who's got a chronic condition may not be able to get a bed. And if we reach that stage, we're going to have a lot of young people dying as well.
Gladys Gashanja, NTV.
Right, business is up next, and so much response on our team coverage tonight. But even as we take the break, Deputy President William Ruto, a tweet: "Dear Kenyans, His Excellency President Kenyatta has just outlined comprehensive measures by the government to tackle COVID-19 challenge, and all of us have to play a part. At the heart of stopping the spread of the virus is personal behavior, washing hands, sanitizing, social distancing, avoid crowds. And in capital, stay at home." Time for a break, we'll be back.
We, Kibabi University, are bound together by our strong belief in our core values: excellence, integrity, social responsibility, transparency, and accountability. Combined with our rich values of innovation in learning and academic freedom, we pride ourselves for being the fastest growing public university in producing champions for the job market and the world. Welcome to a world of expanding opportunities in computing, education, commerce, natural sciences, and social sciences. May and September 2020 intakes are open for postgraduate and undergraduate programs. Kibabi University, knowledge for development.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
Sensitivity is a short, sharp pain that people experience when they have something hot or cold getting to the nerve of the tooth, causing that discomfort. If the sensitivity is left alone, it may get worse. Dentists recommend Sensodyne to their patients. It's able to get inside the tooth and calm the nerve of the tooth down, and the proof's in the results. It works.
The first time I held you, I fell in love with you, and I knew there was something great in you. I can't help but think of the legacy you will leave. I'm proud of who you've become. From mere ambitions to bigger challenges, from having that dream to actually living it, from moving out to settling your family in this dream home.
Every day, we endeavor to provide you with the best real estate solutions. Own your dream home at Victory Gardens, just 10 minutes drive from Kitengela town. Call us today on 0790 300 300.
Basic protective measures as guided by the World Health Organization. Clean hands frequently with soap and clean water. Cover nose and mouth when coughing and sneezing with a tissue or flexed elbow. Avoid close contact 1 meter or 3 feet with anyone with cold or flu-like symptoms. If you have fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical care early. Avoid raw or uncooked animal products. Help the world put an end to the spread of respiratory diseases by sharing this message with a friend. Message brought to you by Sour Herbal Family Bath Soap.
Niaje wa Kenya, hii ni public service announcement kuhusu coronavirus.
The Ministry of Health advises all returnees from abroad to self-quarantine for at least 14 days, whether they feel well or unwell.
Wash your hands regularly following the 8 steps of hand washing. Wet hands with warm water, apply a small amount of soap, rub palms together, rub fingers and thumbs and the bits in between, rub nails on palms, rub the back of each hand, rinse with clean running water, and dry thoroughly with a clean dry towel.
Furthermore, it is advisable to cover your mouth and nose adequately when sneezing or coughing and immediately dispose of the tissue in a dustbin. Please do not use handkerchiefs if you can avoid it. If disposable tissue is unavailable, cough into your elbow. Try and avoid close contact with anyone showing signs of respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing.
Before you share any coronavirus information on social media, please verify it with Ministry of Health to avoid panic and alarm among your fellow Kenyans.
I help women find independence by training them in fish farming. It's tough on my back, joints, and can cause headaches. Panadol Extra relieves multiple types of pain. Panadol Extra, now with new Optizorb technology to fight multiple tough pains with 3 times more pain-relieving medicine in the first 30 minutes when you need it most. Seeing them support themselves makes any pain worth it.
If symptoms persist, seek medical advice. Protect yourself against coronavirus by using Amara antibacterial hand sanitizer that will effectively clean your hands and eliminate disease-causing virus while you're on the go. In line with government regulations against traders hiking the price of hand sanitizers, report any trader selling out of the below prices to 020-864-2330 or 020-864-2333.
For a better tomorrow, don't forget to do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate every night.
NTV Business News in association with KCB Internet Banking.
This is the only name in business. Welcome, I am Julian Amboko. No passenger plane will initiate flight to or depart from Kenyan soil beginning midnight tonight, as Kenya moves to effect the suspension of international flights announced on Sunday in order to curb the spread of the coronavirus. According to the Kenya Airports Authority, an average of 290 flights depart and land in the country every day from different parts of the world, which have largely been blamed for the spread of the virus in the country. Majority of the 25 confirmed cases of the virus in Kenya so far have been imported cases. Along with other cargo vessels such as ships, cargo flights into the country will however continue to operate as the government looks to prevent further disruptions on supply chains and avert a possible jump in commodity prices. Now, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund have today called on all creditor countries to suspend debt payment for all low-income countries whose request for relief this year as a means to help them cope with the shocks of the coronavirus. This comes even as the call for the Kenyan to engage in its creditors for rescheduling of the debt payment in 2020 is gaining momentum as analysts and political leaders view this as one of the ways through which the economy can be cushioned from the effects of the coronavirus. It is argued that this would create ample fiscal space for the government to respond to the present emergency.
China has a moral obligation to accede to a fresh look at Kenya's debt portfolio. An engagement with Kenya's treasury is of the greatest essence.
It's one of those catch-22 situations where we're slightly over-leveraged as an economy anyway. So we're struggling on the debt raising space. And now we're saying, how is that going to be supported? Well, it's either going to be supported through more borrowing or it's going to be supported through an increase in taxes.
And staying with COVID-19, as companies struggle to make adjustments in guaranteeing the safety of their employees whilst still meeting their revenue targets, Honda has stepped up efforts through offering motorcycles to employees who use public transport. The employees will now be able to secure motorcycles through a payment plan as a means to help them adhere to the demands of social distancing. Public transport has been identified as one of the avenues through which commuters are exposed to contracting the virus, with the government now demanding that all service providers carry a maximum of 60% of their capacity.
The President's rally call that the corporate sector works towards ensuring that we safeguard jobs. We employ close to 100 people, and we want to be sure that they are safe, their family members are safe.
And that takes us to the close of business. Up next is the financial report.
NTV Business News in association with KCB Internet Banking.
We can always talk about your account, online, whenever you like.
Register at your nearest branch for KCB Internet Banking today.
Good morning, Janet.
Wow! And you are?
I'm Casey. Now help you with anything to do with your KCB bank account. Pay bills, transfers, statements.
You're hired.
I'm your internet banking security ninja. I'm your 24/7 personal assistant.
Super.
So, we can always talk about your account, online, whenever you like. Need a ride?
Let's go.
Alrighty. With you anywhere, anytime.
Register at your nearest branch for KCB Internet Banking today.
Nyaje wa Kenya. Hii ni public service announcement kuhusu coronavirus.
The Ministry of Health advises all returnees from abroad to self-quarantine for at least 14 days, whether they feel well or unwell.
Wash your hands regularly following the 8 steps of hand washing. Wet hands with warm water. Apply a small amount of soap. Rub palms together. Rub fingers and thumbs and the bits in between. Rub nails on palms. Rub the back of each hand. Rinse with clean running water and dry thoroughly with a clean dry towel.
Furthermore, it is advisable to cover your mouth and nose adequately when sneezing or coughing and immediately dispose of the tissue in a dustbin. Please do not use handkerchiefs if you can avoid it. If disposable tissue is unavailable, cough into your elbow. Try and avoid close contact with anyone showing signs of respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing.
Before you share any coronavirus information on social media, please verify it with Ministry of Health to avoid panic and alarm among your fellow Kenyans.
Heaviness and a burning inside, it could be heartburn.
Indigestion and heartburn? Eno gets to work in 6 seconds and works on the 6 symptoms of heartburn so you can keep living life non-stop. Eno, fight heartburn and indigestion fast.
And the news continues right here on NTV tonight, and we still have sports in the next few minutes. But first, ODM leader Raila Odinga also lent his voice to the calls urging Kenyans to stick to the measures put in place by the Ministry of Health in order to stop the spread of the coronavirus.
Corona is real and it is a threat to humanity. It has already claimed 16,000 lives worldwide. So what do we do right now to protect ourselves against corona? Number one, wash your hands with water and soap or use sanitizers. Number two, stay away from funerals except those of your immediate members of the family. Number three, stay away from crowds. Number four, stop shaking hands. Obey the directives issued by the government from time to time. Be safe. Stay at home.
Be safe and stay at home. Time for another break. I'll be back with sports.
Swaddling needs a blanket and helps your baby feel safe and secure as she adjusts to life outside the womb. Spread your baby's blanket out on a flat surface. Place your baby face up on the blanket. Their head should sit above the folded corner. Straighten your baby's arms, then take the sides of the blanket and wrap it over their arms and chest. Loosely twist the bottom of the blanket and tuck it underneath your baby. At this point, your baby is fully covered.
Kiss Kids, no rashes. Bye-bye rashes. Buy diapers. Choose Kiss Kids.
Protect yourself against coronavirus by using Amara antibacterial hand sanitizer that will effectively clean your hands and eliminate disease-causing virus while you're on the go.
The first time I held you, I fell in love with you, and I knew there was something great in you. I can't help but think of the legacy you will leave. I'm proud of who you've become. From mere ambitions to bigger challenges, from having that dream to actually living it, from moving out to settling your family in this dream home.
Every day, we endeavor to provide you with the best real estate solutions. Own your dream home at Victory Gardens, just 10 minutes drive from Kitengela town. Call us today on 0790 300 300.
Usingoje hadi dakika ya mwisho. Pimwa kwenye hospitali ya serikali. Matibabu inapatikana bila malipo. TB inakinga na tiba.
Nyaje wa Kenya. Hii ni public service announcement kuhusu coronavirus.
The Ministry of Health advises all returnees from abroad to self-quarantine for at least 14 days, whether they feel well or unwell.
Wash your hands regularly following the 8 steps of hand washing. Wet hands with warm water. Apply a small amount of soap. Rub palms together. Rub fingers and thumbs and the beads in between. Rub nails on palms. Rub the back of each hand. Rinse with clean running water and dry thoroughly with a clean dry towel.
Furthermore, it is advisable to cover your mouth and nose adequately when sneezing or coughing and immediately dispose of the tissue in a dustbin. Please do not use handkerchiefs if you can avoid it. If disposable tissue is unavailable, cough into your elbow. Try and avoid close contact with anyone showing signs of respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing.
Before you share any coronavirus information on social media, please verify it with Ministry of Health to avoid panic and alarm among your fellow Kenyans.
Molfix breathable surface developed with airsoft technology is very soft and provides the best Molfix skincare.
I've found the best diaper for my baby's sensitive skin.
All babies deserve a high-quality diaper. You should also try Molfix.
All right, time now to play. It's about 6 minutes past the top of the hour. World Football Governing Body, that's FIFA, has directed that FKF Executive Committee, including its president, will remain in office after it's overturned the Sports Disputes Tribunal ruling on